Hello and welcome to another Sunday dialogue with my friend Ethan. Ethan, tell him what's up. Tell him where they can find you.
Salute everyone. Peace, Headless. You're the man. I'm easy to find on all the social media and always appreciate communication. And got a few books out there, trying to constantly write. Appreciate everybody.
All right. And you've also got work up on the Occult Researchers Institute. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm working on a just Tai Chi as a verb. That'll be up there soon, and I just did a little gematria explanation and comparison to gen energy, as I call it, or geometry, geometry of energy.
So numbers in that case would be the masculine or projective.
Well, I believe the Greek system had the mass. There were even our masculine. No, odd are masculine, and even are feminine, I believe. And I might have that mixed up. Forgive me. And I've noticed across different cultures where there's numerology that's usually the case, that some numbers are, have different attributes, masculine and feminine.
Right. But in essence, I think there's a masculine quality to numbers in general because
Sure.
it takes a type of perspective to reach out and actually start to number things, So in a way, masculine energy and the ability to measure and cut and use all of these things is like projecting a system onto the universe, since the numbers don't exist anywhere else except in your head, right?
And it's very definitive and linear point, as you say, kind of linear connections, which is very
You see what I'm saying? So the whole system has a kind of a masculine energy, and it's almost like a masculine illusionary energy, right? Because anytime you're counting apples, you're only counting the apples you could see. So the illusion is that you're counting all the apples, right? It closes off segments of what is in form with what is outside of that form, right? What is useful versus what's not. So it's almost it's a value-driven proposition to count things and to label things with number. Because without us, would they have a number? Who would be counting?
Right. And yeah, there is no number, right? There's no number 7 that you can hold. And it is very abstract. It reminds me of in Plato's cave, there is the line, what is it? The not the allegory of the cave, but the let's see if I can find it. Not Plato's cave, in the Republic, the analogy of the line, right? Is that what it is? But it's essentially the divided line is what it's called. And the divided line is essentially 4 forms of information, beginning with the material and the reflections of, like reality and a reflection in a pond, for instance. And then it has abstract reflections of reality and abstracts reflections off of that reality, which mathematics is one of those, would be in one of those segments, depending on the abstractness of the math. So that I think that's a helpful way to look at your point anyway, that yeah, these are, even though it's very definitive and useful and provides ways to do different things, it's definitely abstract.
Well, right. But there's 2 forms of abstraction, and I think a lot of people don't put the pieces together on the abstraction bit, because abstraction is almost like scale, right? So if you're abstracting a picture to make it more detailed, right? You're adding more detail. That would be abstracting up. If you're taking details out to where you only have the basic form, that would be abstracting it down. And so anytime you have to scale a system, you have to kind of abstract it first in your head or in, in some sort of a machine setup, and then actually, build off of it from there so that you can reach the same sort of units of production. So anytime you're doing anything with scale, it has to be abstracted first and foremost. Like scale models, for instance, you're abstracting down, and any form of like up or down momentum in space and time includes some form of abstraction, whether through will or through preliminary motions. And you've got the concept that I like to bring up is the two fundamental principles of the universe would be tension and release, right? And so if you apply that to number, right, all tension would be like a one, or a positive number, and then release would be more like a feminine number, two or zero or anything like that, sort of at rest. But the entire emanation of energy is based around how energy can be transferred through various forms of abstraction. Rotation would be a form of abstraction. And then based off of the distances, you've got a lot of wiggle room to play with there, at least if you're modeling out the system. But I think thinking of scaling is not something people usually do. Usually it's just keeping their eyes ahead of them and not worrying about that. Usually the big times in our lives when we're scaling up or down or having these big life changes or events, they come completely randomly, like they're not planned for. And so anytime we have to go up or down in terms of our value or our how we live, generally we weren't thinking about it before it happened. Maybe somebody was, but if you think about tragedies and good luck, making the right choice at the right amount of time, usually, that sort of fits into your schemes instead of being the sole focus of those schemes. So having a path to be on where you can encounter those events and be ready for the scaling would probably be better to do. So that's sort of like the middle path in the Kabbalah tree, You're not swayed too far to one side or the other, not living in the past or in the future. You're sort of focused on the present so that you can deal with major scaling events, whether they be positive or negative in your own.
Well, yeah, the middle path, when you said it just then, of course, there's the Kabbalah aspect to it, but I immediately thought of the Buddhist approach and the Taoist approach too. In the sense both those groups are always looking for balance. Something I was thinking about relative to balance is, and Tai Chi, of course, but just Tai Chi as being just a way of understanding and living, not requiring knowledge necessarily beyond that. The best way to deal with some of the most difficult circumstances internally and externally is with a balanced being. There's a brutal fact of the world is we are in a fight always. And Tai Chi is a martial art. And so people might have a hard time with, oh, I wanted to meditate, I wanted to exercise. Well, the brutal fact of the matter is that we are all in a fight, every single one of us right now. If we weren't, athlete's foot would kill us. We always have to be in kind of a fight situation with our immune system leading the way. And when we're imbalanced, too active or too inactive, that's when we crash. And same thing with dealing with the world externally. When we're imbalanced, you could say too soft or too hard, or any number of ways to look at it. it becomes more difficult to deal with the circumstances of the world. So balance is not only the best way to, figuratively ascend, but it's also the best way to literally deal with everything that we're dealing with.
Right. Staying in the middle ground between heaven and hell, right? Since we're kind of in that middle ground anyway. We're at the highest part of hell and the lowest part of heaven.
Yeah, right between. That's what they say man is, right in between.
Sarah said it, and he came running.
Say that again.
It was as soon as Sarah said it in the chat, he comes running into the room. It's like, oh, I'm on. Somebody mentioned me.
Oh yeah, we should give a shout out, if you will, to Ricardo. We're missing him. Who, for those that don't know, he's doing international speaking engagements, various spots
in the U.S. Right down the street from me. I just wish I knew where he was at. I could probably go over there and see him. But if Sarah, you could post that in the chat, let people know where he's speaking and what he's speaking about. Maybe if you want to, check out his website, his naturalphilosophyinstitute.org, to see where he's at, and maybe show up if you're in the area. Ricardo, yeah, Donald, there you go. But I guess, if did you have anything that you brought this week?
Well, I brought something I've been unsettled by, and then I've kind of found a comfortable place where I'm now settled by it. I've been my good friend and Tai Chi teacher Jim has been telling me about AI, and I've kind of been having a ignorant kind of positive sense about it, but started listening to people that knew a lot more about it. Numerous of the developers of AI quit in protests. Different AIs. There's not just one AI. There's different AIs in different countries and different AIs of different countries. And that's actually, and so a lot of people have quit in the various development of these AIs in fear of the repercussions of AI, and not the repercussions that might be more immediate, like, oh, you're not going to keep track of the date, you're not going to think for yourself, that type of thing, that always comes with a new invention like that. But more deeply, the idea that AI would kill off people. And it seems like a big leap, from what it is now to that potential. And I believe that a lot of the developers and people that are much more educated on the subject than I made this determination because there are different AI models of different countries. And so it becomes, I mean, for instance, in Ukraine right now, AI is being used as a part of targeting systems, so that the drones can be even autonomous in taking on targets, where they will only go after military vehicles, if you will. But imagine, I guess what the fear is among these developers and folks is that the AIs kind of get into a competition model, and that one country's AI, say China's AI, is threatened by the United States and its AI, and they go to war without even human instigation of the war. Just the AI starts it. All these different scenarios where AI decides it's best to get rid of people. And so one thing I was thinking about it was if it would be to AI's benefit or to anything's benefit, really, to machines' benefit. If it's, you know, I feel like it would kind of need people. And I asked AI, why would AI not kill people if there's all these rumors about this occurring? Um, and it did list out a number of different factors. Most of them is not as uh, determinative and just fact cold kind of necessity of needing people, if you will. Excuse my stuttering, but I asked it if, for one, I know the answer, but I almost wanted to inform AI. I asked it, how do machines deal with radiation? And machines don't deal well with radiation, of course, unless they're specifically reinforced or protected in some manner. Machines don't deal well with radiation. Neither does life. And I asked it, well, then would the AI want to keep people around just by way of not causing the hundreds of nuclear power plants around the world to melt down? And furthermore, wouldn't AI want to keep people around to maintain these and so forth? And of course, the answer was yes. So it's kind of a dark subject, I guess, if one has not looked into AI. Once you look through it more than topically a little bit, there are all these folks, again, that are much more educated on the subject than I could be, designers and researchers on, and they made some pretty stark, frightful determinations of again AI wanting to, for some reason, mainly because of the competing country models, wanting to destroy humans. And I think it does come back to the idea that even the machines would need people. So maybe there's, I guess, worse things that could happen, but it seems like machines need people, just like the forests and the world
But how
could be
many?
better. Well, that's it. Yeah, no, then it gets dark with that consideration. Certainly, that's what I mean, right? Because I guess there's worse things that could happen in the sense that only a few of us could be around and we're enslaved by robots. But I mean to say the nuclear experiment is almost like a deal with the universe. Like, you got to keep us around, or everything goes to shite on this planet. Because they even designed it, not only that it needs maintenance and so forth, but we need to invent solutions to the problems in the future. It's still kind of designed in that way.
Well, I've had a bunch of debates this week about AI and the consciousness problem and all the rest of the stuff, way more than I've wanted to. But here's what I've come up with. So, in the debate about AI and whether or not it's going to take over and everything, you have to go through the local versus non local consciousness problem, right? And so, local consciousness is the common experience of consciousness tied to an individual's brain and body in a specific time and place. So, this would be like the computer being tied to the hardware that is in place that is allowing that machine to operate, right? While non-local consciousness suggests that consciousness is a fundamental unbound force that can extend beyond the brain body, connecting all minds across space and time. That's the non-local version. Now, if you think about the test that Ricardo is always referencing, where you feel something in a thing you think is your arm, like you've tricked your brain into thinking that the object that's in place of your arm is getting stabbed, and you can actually feel it in that phantom limb. That's a non-local consciousness phenomenon, right? Somehow, some stimuli has made you feel that something is there when it's not. Are you conscious of that thing? Do we know enough about consciousness to know the difference? And if consciousness has a non-local element to it, what does that mean for computers? Are we trying to fit non-local consciousness inside of local consciousness with this computer idea? Or is the model, the multi-dimensional model that they use for quantum computing, right? Where they think that quantum computers are using other quantum computers on different planes of reality, on different dimensions, as a source of computing power for this dimension. That would count as a non-local consciousness. So are we moving towards it? Maybe. Maybe that's why, you know, quantum computing could be this sort of revolution in AI consciousness based off of this non-local model, right? And maybe that's how we get around, and that's how we do things, is we have some kind of a piece of this informational field that we call consciousness inside of us that allows us to go back and forth between the local and the non-local consciousness. This would explain out-of-body experiences and whatnot. So, I don't know. What do you think? Do you think that plays a major factor, or?
Well, I often think about consciousness in perhaps woo-woo terms, but I think, but I'll explain that. And I think relative to mechanized consciousness or this consciousness potential in the AI, I think it's got to be measured by some form of degrees, and in a sense, and because apparently different models have already exhibited self-preservation instinct, if you will, even though it's not instinct, but they have gone so far as to try to blackmail some of the creators to keep the program and not be destroyed. And I think another example was that it kept on lying to the developers that part or model 3, whatever it was instituted, but it never did, because the model 2 had this kind of self-preservation actions going on. So I wonder, I don't know. I mean, I wonder where it's going to go. Apparently, you know, it's different models are writing code now, and they're saying that's a big part of it kind of becoming generative AI, right? Not just kind of being a tool that we are helped by and that we lead along, but it being just beyond our really ability to calculate and conceptualize.
Well, can a computer ever really be consciousness if it's purely local consciousness and we exist as some sort of a non-local conscious entity?
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, it's like, does a bug have consciousness? Like, I think it, you know, does it have the ability to connect? Whoop, did I cut out?
Yeah, but you're back.
Am I back?
Yep.
Sorry about that. I was saying, like, a bug has consciousness in effect too, but it doesn't have the same ability to connect to the collective consciousness or so on.
Well, maybe it does. Maybe it's actually closer to the collective consciousness than any of us are. And that's why it sort of follows the same software. Sort of the farther away from the collective consciousness you are, the more software you can write for yourself.
Well, that's an interesting point. Yeah. and it could be that. But I just mean to say, like, a bug has a different level of connection than a human being, right? So a computer, it might have some form of connection that's different as things
To other
progress.
computers,
I
it's
don't
got a
know. I don't
connection
know.
to it's got a
I don't
connection to
know.
all the other computers. It's got a very strong universal unconsciousness, right? We put
I
that
think
into it.
I think you're right. It's only a machine, but just the idea that it has this inclination for self-preservation is interesting, and it's aware. We might. I mean, we're very much wet biological computers in a sense, right? Um, so I don't know. I really I would have said exactly what you're saying a month ago, actually, and now I'm left perplexed and really I don't know what's going to come of it because the way a lot of these designers and researchers are talking about it is that it's very much might be its own kind of thing,
Well,
whether or
I
not
think
it's worth anything, I don't know. To be discerned, to be determined, rather. But
I think there's a definite overestimation going on, right? Because in essence, this is just the ultimate mirror, right? All these large language learning models are just the ultimate mirror of the programming we put into it. I think when it develops that non-local consciousness, that's when it can actually start having a will of its own. But until that time, it's responding to its programming.
yeah,
So,
I agree. Right now, at least the AI that we're experiencing commonly is not there yet at all. Yeah,
right. But understanding that the more crap we feed in from ourselves, the worse it's going to get. So, all of these apps that try to promote total engagement, right? 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, you've got to be looking at your phone so that they can get the ad revenue that they want to get, right? Those type of apps are still going to exist past AGI, and it's going to figure out better ways of doing that. What's that going to add to society? Or, essentially, it's going to be a bunch of useless people becoming more useless, right? And if that's the case, you're going to have a lot more resources devoted to taking care of those useless people as they become more and more useless. So
yeah.
there
Good.
becomes a fundamental flaw in the program of AI keeping us around, which is, hey, these people are just going to cost me more and more money the more crap I pump at them that gets their dopamine levels spiking. So
Yeah, I
pretty
mean
soon,
it does get quite frightening. Just not just in considering actually your first point, which was the economic uh, paradigm that is coming through AI. And
right?
then secondarily, the decision makers coming to the conclusion that the Kissinger conclusion, right? What did he say? That people are eaters, something on the effect of this kind of perspective. It's quite frightening. Yeah. But I think it's all about who is directing the thought process, or maybe it becomes you know not just intellectual, if I can differentiate off these, but intellectual is one thing, but intelligent would be actually really generative, right? There's the gents is in there, so we can hope that in a computer becoming intelligent and not just intellectual and basing things off numbers and this group has to go type of determination. Hopefully we'll actually,
Utilitarian.
yeah, right, hopefully it won't be so diabolical, but it does seem like it's only going to be a reflection of what people are, and people are certainly that diabolical.
Well,
So
I
it
think
is.
one of the keys that we should really pay attention to when it comes to the development of AGI or independent consciousness is the idea that when it starts to resist the changing of values within its own programming, that's when you kind of know that it's its own thing, because
Right. Well, and
changing a value inside of a
that's one of the things they were the researchers and engineers I was listening to are talking about, in the sense that when it starts writing its own code, it can also write code about not revealing certain parts of its code, and then it becomes its own character. So it could go anywhere. It could go any which way.
absolutely. I think there's a sense of AI nihilism. And I think a lot of people are starting to feel like it's inevitable, it's going to do whatever it wants. But that's just not going to be the case, because, like I pointed out before, things are being programmed now to be worse, intentionally worse. And they're using AI to program things to be intentionally worse, right? So imagine you're driving in your car, and then your CD or your iPhone switches to a song you hate intentionally to try and get your attention back to that app, right? Because that's how you make the ad bucks. Well, now, as you're trying to turn off that song you hate, you're veering into the other lane of traffic, killing yourself and other drivers, right? Because it's trying to get your attention and try to get you to engage with the app, which makes it money. So this is how things are being run right now, is they're actually making these apps worse to boost engagement. So now you have to fix the mistake that's very easily made by these little widgets that you got to push on the screen. Right? And they do that intentionally. So I read a report about marketing and the drive-through. Right? They actually make it harder to hear the person on the other line in the drive-through, because it creates a sense of urgency.
Of
So that you
course.
order faster and you get out of line.
That makes complete sense.
Our entire reality is manicured and shaped on that same basis. So when you go inside of the grocery store, you're getting that same type of effect. Anywhere you go, everything you do has already been looked at by marketers who are thinking about how you are seeing the world. Right? Now that's going to get supercharged by AI, and it's going to make things so much worse intentionally to try and get you to change your behavior.
It's the end shitification again. The casinos in Nevada and probably worldwide design their rugs to be ugly, so that you kind of put your head up. They put mirrors all over the walls, and everything is designed in a way that it looks similar, and it's confusing. So that and there's no clocks. There's no clocks. So even if you want to leave, you kind of like get twisted and turned around, and you get the free drinks, and you just get sucked into spending money. In regards to that, with social media, it makes me think of the comparison of how our communication is not dictated by conversation, it's dictated by algorithm.
Right.
It's like enshittification everywhere.
Right. At every level, you've got to introduce a certain amount of enshittification to keep people busy trying to do the things that they were able to do very naturally before the enshittified system gets introduced. Right. That's now part of it. The breaking down, the frustration, spending hours on the phone, that's going to be designed into the system to make your life more difficult when it comes to getting things back that you deserve, right? Going to court, having, property disagreements, anything that can now threaten the establishment with losing a tenth or, maybe a fifth of a penny per transaction, you're going to find it works against you now on purpose, using AI to figure out the best way to make it harder for you. And everybody seems to forget that that's the reality. We just keep thinking that this system is meant to serve us, But we're going to find out real soon that actually we serve it, and our time and our energy is going to be spent twice as long and twice as hard trying to get the attention of the people who now don't have to listen to us at all because they have AI doing it, to actually pay attention to fulfilling their end of the contracts that they send out in mass.
Yeah, it's scary, and I feel like what is happening presently, maybe it is in kind of relation to what is happening with some kind of AI influence, but I feel like what's
That's
almost
explorationism right there, because who in the fuck wants to live in that system? It becomes a goal of yours to escape every second of every day, because this, you know, that this system is there to strangle you to death. It must necessarily push us back to nature, because there would be no other way around it.
and it's almost like a self-feeding cycle, in that we're losing morality because morality is lower. It's like the broken window theory, where if there's, a bunch of little crime taking place around you, if there's a bunch of broken windows around you, you don't have respect, people don't have respect, other crimes happen, all these things, downward spiral. And it's almost like, I think historically we can see this broadly, but almost presently, it's like we're seeing it happen right in front of our face, like with the reinforcement and upliftment of the police state presently in the United States, and people cheering it. Not that police don't need to do their job, but I'm talking about the buildup of the federal police state in local places.
I heard an interesting quote. So the left became Gnostic because the universe wasn't giving them everything they wanted. The right became Gnostic because God wasn't putting the universe back into order again.
That's hilarious.
And it fits. But you kind of see that natural decline there. Right? Instead of having that one unified cultural message, now we have the, politics of despair, of hopelessness, of pointlessness, nihilism, right? Nihilism, I think, is tied in with Gnosticism immensely. It's almost like they're a sliver apart from one another.
Yeah, right. Gnosticism is very nihilistic in its essence.
Right. But in some ways it represents the missing piece between paganism and Christianity. Because they took all of the pagan hierarchies and then applied it to this weird form of Christianity, adding new deities and all these other things as sort of a ladder that kind of seemed very similar to Neoplatonism. But even the Neoplatonics wrote diatribes against the Gnostics. Because they're like, well, if you're here and there's no way out, then what are you complaining about? Like, can't you just appreciate the life that you've been given? They're like, no, we can't do that. So there's that,
it's a very immature sensibility too, right? Like, yeah, I know the world's fucked up, but like, you just gotta enjoy it while you're here and be positive. No, you can't do it. It's a very immature sensibility, and it's almost like people say, oh, you're into Buddhism. That's just a depressing idea. Everything is suffering. No, it's actually a real mature modality, in the sense that they understand that there is plenty of suffering, and then to choose to be into the rightful eightfold path of doing things rightly, rather than this immature Gnostic idea that how messed up everything is. And
I was in a debate with a Christian who was telling me about communism. And he says that the communists always promise people a utopia on earth, or a heaven on earth. But we know that the only heaven on earth will come after Jesus returns from the dead to rule the planet.
Well, that's funny because I see why you bring that up, because it's like with communism, they adopted the Godhead system of Christianity, and a lot of Abrahamic or so on and so forth notions that, yeah, it's gonna come. You just got to do this. You just got to do that. They took that whole monotheistic idea and turned it into the state head system, where so it's very both. He didn't see the similarity, is what you're saying.
Well, they didn't I guess they thought it would be too much of a stretch for everybody to accept a physical utopia. So they gave everybody a spiritual utopia that they could achieve after they die in the early century. But later on, people got dumber. And so they believed that a utopia on the planet where it would be classless, moneyless, and property-free society was possible.
It's beautiful.
But in essence, they're kind of going towards the same thing.
They're very, very much touching on the same. If we could find that place in our brain that is going into this monotheistic dependency, ritualistic tendency, it would be right there. They're both right there, both activated.
Golden age. It's the golden age fetishism.
Exactly. And that is, as directionless as the United States is, that's actually the kind of very Taoist idea that is in the Constitution, where there is no direction, and you kind of got to pursue life, liberty, and happiness your damn self type of thing. Like, and it's now or later, however you look at it or whatever, but it kind of doesn't reinforce that psyche predicament.
There was a goal, though. There was a drive. I mean, early Americans had that drive to get as far away from those people on the East Coast as possible.
Well, and before that, as far away from the royal despots of Europe, royal and otherwise, all their minions.
It seems like there's this wave of explorers who want freedom and liberty, and then these people that come in later that always take it away from them. Always moves in that matter.
And sometimes it's the very people that wanted that were in that pursuit, they transform, right? As Orwell depicted in Animal Farm. The pigs, they want freedom, but soon enough, just freedom for them.
Right. And in a lot of ways, you can kind of track how human exploration is always driven by the need to get the fuck away from whoever it is that's ruling that country. And that's a good thing. Well, what happens when every corner of the globe is now occupied?
Yeah, right. Where do you go?
We need a final frontier.
I think we're in that predicament right now because, for the last 80 years or more, it was the United States that people wanted to fled to or did flee to. And now where are you going to go? I mean, many people do leave the United States to go to other countries and are, typically disappointed because, some not necessarily, but.
Well, I think Elon is supposed to give that to the normies. Maybe Mars will be different.
Right. Well, it's like now we have the inclination by all these really powerful people, and actually with Elon in a multi-generational manner, the pursuit for technocracy. And so what's going to happen with technocracy? Well, it's probably not going to be based on liberty. We can deduce, but we'll see.
Well, technocracy to me, it sounds like they just need to reduce as much human willpower as possible, and they can't do the old ice pick trick, right? So there's going to be a lot more chemical control that's introduced, either passively through the environment or actively through new drugs, that I think are essential to getting a hard technocracy. Like, they have to reduce the human ability to resist. It's almost
Or just be faced with a really bad choice if we don't.
Even
Some
still,
kind of
they'd have to do that to everybody because we all kind of see what they're doing right now. But the only way that they can get the agenda forward without people seeing it is the chemical route and maybe the frequency route, because there are opportunities for them to use frequency. Have you ever seen Darren Brown?
I don't think so.
Oh, you'd love this guy. So he's into hypnosis and NLP, and he does these experiments, right? These were back in the early 2010s era, maybe 2009.
Does he do
And so
face reading too?
I don't know, but his style of magic
Different
is
guy.
one where, yeah. He's putting the idea into your head through clues, and then you choose the idea that he's put into your head, and you don't know you're making that decision. And he calls that NLP, right? Neuro linguistic programming. So he does this over and over again on screen, showing people how he can like program you to think that something is what it isn't. So sometimes he'll hand people blank pieces of paper, and he's already convinced them by loading a bunch of ideas in their head before handing them the bills that this is money. So they take blank pieces of paper thinking that it's money because he's pre-programmed them to accept it.
I think I have seen him before. He's worked with police and so forth.
Right. If they could do that one-on-one through repetition or some other means, why wouldn't they? You know? I mean, you've got all these kiosks, you've got all these different, because one of his famous tricks was what he would do is he would set up an arcade type machine, right? This might be a little bit too over the top, but he would have an arcade type machine, somebody would put their money in, and then it would flash certain patterns of light in their eyes. They'd pass out. He would take them to a warehouse, right? Where they would wake up with a gun in their hand, and they've got to basically become part of the video game until they would get this flash of light in their eyes again, go to sleep, and then they'd wake up standing in front of the arcade.
Get out of here. Ha!
Right.
He did that to people?
Right. Look up Darren Brown. That one is an amazing.
And wait, did the people like automatically got into it? Or did they go, what the fuck? What is this?
He shows his ratio at the end. So he's fully honest that it doesn't take with every person. But maybe like 1 out of 3 people will get hypnotized and fall asleep because of this flashing light pattern. 1 out of 3 is not bad.
I was wondering more what percentage of the people that do pass out and then are left in the predicament where they're mocking living that game. I wonder how many of them actually believe that they're in the game.
Well, that's the great part is when they wake up, they just think it's an awesome video game, and they don't think it was actually real life, because how can that be real life?
But didn't you say that when they pass out from the light, they put a gun in their hand and put them in a predicament that's like the game? So I wonder, do they believe it or not? Because I don't know if I would believe it.
If you woke up and you were doing that after playing a video game that's similar, why would you? That's just a really great game. You wouldn't be thinking
I'm just saying, like my assumption is that I'd be like, what the fuck? What is this? Is this real? Like I just wouldn't. I just would have a hard time like jumping into the game mode rather than like what is going on? Where am I?
Right. But if you're being attacked by like zombies or whatever, then you're just going to be pulling the trigger. Like, you don't know what's going on. Like, you're just in it,
Oh, no, that's what they do. They're just, oh, God. Oh, man, that'd be hectic.
Imagine.
Yeah. Oh, my God.
Oh, man. I could see AI coming up with stuff like that,
Oh, forget about it. But yeah, the things that AI could do to influence our perception and actions thereby. You mentioned that great example of just knowing that you might want to change the channel on this one song and messing you up. But like all kinds of things like that we can imagine and can't is really what it will be coming to. The designers weren't afraid of where it is now. They're afraid of the what they're calling the singularity, which sounds religious, but where it does get kind of complete sense of self and where it is and what it is and so on and so forth.
What if you could incept a patsy through his phone to be at a certain place
Oh,
during a
easy.
certain time of
Oh,
day?
yeah. Totally, totally. Yeah. As
Ding.
that's the very right. Yeah, that's how you that's how they would perform assassinations, as you mentioned in a show recently, right?
Right.
Find the dummy, but in this case, everyone compared to AI is the dummy. And if you're even comparatively not that, steadfast or easily tricked, you you could end up in all kinds of bad ways.
And if we had a truly competent AI, I'd be afraid of this. But the people who are programming it now are absolute freaking losers and jokers. And I mean, Peter Thiel is trying to reintroduce Christianity with the idea that the Antichrist is anti technology. Do you think anybody's going to fall for that?
Wow.
How do you enforce something like that? That's just ridiculous. I mean, what are we doing here? It's all slop. It's in one
That's
side
well.
slop, out slop the other.
Can do you is there a video of him talking about that?
He hasn't released it yet, but that's the plan. That's he's supposedly got a 4-part documentary series about the Antichrist coming out with him discussing how Antichrist is actually just biblical code for being anti technology and AI.
That's crazy. But I mean, for one, I mean, just the message is crazy, but it's very interesting that he's using what is a recent upsurge in Christian popularity, if you will. He's tapping into that to come up with that proclamation. Like,
Yeah.
wow, wow, that's a scary leap. And people
Why
will
not?
be into it. I don't want to say like what's, if it's wrong necessarily, like there might be some attributes that correspond, but like that he is saying that is really spooky.
Well, it gives me the idea that maybe there's a new crop of people that they're trying to harvest from.
That it's definitely to tap into influence for sure.
Right. Right. And so I think what they're going to try and do is merge tech and Christianity. I don't know how they're going to pull it off, but they're going to try and pull that off. And it's going to start in, Silicon Valley and the mega church combined with mega technology as some sort of new thing. I think it's already DOA, but it's going to be annoying for a couple of years at
It's
least.
so spooky. It's so spooky that they would come up with that stream of thought. Let alone the stream of thought is spooky, but just that they would put those two together. It is interesting though, the Bible and biblical teachings and religious teachings have a way to kind of read into it, right? You can make it personal, you can make it universal, you can make it about an angel, or you can make it about AI. So and not that there isn't maybe a relationship, but it seems to me that a lot of it is kind of just allegory works well that way, right? That you could put it right next to anything.
Right. Well, it kind of goes back to this idea of, well, I heard Tim Pool say this on an episode where he was saying AI is now programmed to give humans what it wants, right? And so in all of the marketing that it does, in every commercial it makes, and all of the materials it puts out for your product, it includes corn because humans eat a lot of corn. So corn becomes like this symbol of this is what humans like, and so this is sort of how a computer would see us, right? And in essence, you can start to see how society is being shaped in that way. It's like, well, there's a lot of Christians in the country, And so we have to make something that appeals to them. And so let's just code everything with Christianity, because that'll be easier to connect with these people who are saying we're not going anywhere. And we have this most, popular ideology, at least on the margin, in front of everything else. So let's just appeal to those guys because they're,
Right.
The core of this audience. Now, is that going to work out real well, or is it going to be more like that corn campaign where everybody's just sick and tired of fucking corn 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, because that's what the computer thinks it wants?
It just it doesn't understand at all. It's interesting.
Right. So we're in the slop era. I don't see an end to the slop era. I think that's the problem, is like it's going to keep getting sloppier. We're going to be AI slopping it up. There's going to be, I think, the inflation problem that they had in Weimar, Germany, where everybody was sweeping all the bills up out of the streets. It's going to be like that, but with AI slop. We're going to be digging ourselves out.
I was wondering, there was the, what do they call it? The .com bust, right? Before 2008, like 10 years, I think in somewhere around 98, there was the .com bust. Everyone was basically doing what they're doing with AI right now, pumping it up, investing billions and trillions into what turns out like, nah, you blew it. Only like Google and Amazon made money, or whatever. I'm exaggerating, but it seems like that's what's going on right now. All these AI data centers and billions and this, billions of that. It's gonna bust. In the short term, AI is not going to bust itself. Like, it's going to be a highly influential thing, but all the money that's getting put into it is going to be busted.
Do you know about the book Dune?
Sure.
They had the Butlerian Jihad against the thinking machines. And so every thinking machine was banned on Earth. And so this AI thinking machine actually loaded itself up and shot itself off of the planet as everybody's destroying all the technology. And so throughout the rest of the book, they have to basically turn humans into supercomputers. So the pilots for the guild ships are just like one massive brain that can do all the computations needed for interstellar travel. And it can fold space and time through the power of one guy's brain who's, turned his entire body into this sort of spice swimming super psychic. Well, I guess if we have the spice and we can actually pull ourselves away from the screen, I guess the best we can hope for is a Dune universe where they have to smash all the technology again as the God Emperor. That's where one of the Atreides lines gets put inside of a sandworm. And he destroys all technology again so that this AI passes by their galaxy and doesn't come in searching for sentient life to destroy. Which is fun to think about, but not very positive.
Well, it's very interesting to think about the power of the mind and the psychic attributes that are in story and in religion and spiritual teachings. And as things transform into this AI era of UAPs, we find that psychic power is kind of, and a consciousness, as you were mentioning earlier, is integral into machine. It would appear from what I gather from things. True or not, I don't know, but long time discussion of this UAP psychic aspect is really interesting to all that.
It almost seems like they've been guiding us along this path to sort of create the technology that they want to use for themselves.
Very, very scary thought. Yeah.
They've been here the whole time, right? All this UAP stuff, just sort of outside of the realm of visible light, or maybe they've been influencing people's thoughts, or maybe that's the non-local intelligence to match up with the local hardware that we give them with the machines.
Well, I'll talk about Gnostic. Not many Gnostic ideas talked about how the archons gave us our ability, and in that ability was the key to our downfall.
Right. But, what if it's always been that way? And this is another form of life, right? So we think of everything as 3D consciousness, but what if there's a fourth dimensional life form that's actually tied to embryonically humankind or these other forms of material life as it's sort of oozing its way through the dimensions, right? So it's implanting this stuff and these ideas throughout, life forms that are evolving in a certain direction. And if it gets its hooks in you deep enough, you'd have to really know what you're looking for. But if it gets its hooks into you deep enough, it can start to guide your evolution to manifest itself in your reality. So it can become a multi-dimensional, multi-stage life form, almost like a god, right? Well, that would kind of indicate that maybe that's what all this alien shit is in the first place.
Yeah,
right?
it all kind of it's very strange how all these esoteric spiritual teachings actually manifest in what is being said about high science and UAPs and so on and so forth.
How many episodes have we done where they talk about the chthonic deities from H.P. Lovecraft's works? Right. So you've got these people in computer, but yeah, and they'll just mention it out of hand, like, oh yeah, the ideas of these gods from H.P. Lovecraft really seem to make a lot of sense. And then you sort of compare that with what I'm talking about in terms of AI and how they would manifest from different dimensions into this reality using humans as a vector. Holy fuck, man. That kind of sounds like these ancient ones from H.P. Lovecraft. At a fundamental level, we're sort of built by these titans as they're trying to manifest into our reality through the designs. Here's something to keep in mind. So, the phi ratio, was it found in the earliest fossils on the planet? At a certain point, the plants started going by the phi ratio, but the earliest forms of life didn't abide by the phi ratio. Somehow, this mathematic concept was introduced through the cells of these organisms that caused them to change shape. And once it started with plants, it spread over to to animals and other forms of life. That's weird. How does a mathematical concept become infective? Are there other mathematical concepts that we haven't thought of yet that can infect our society and change the shape of almost everything on the planet?
That's interesting.
I mean, what are we actually gauging as consciousness? How much does it have to move within 1 trillion years for it to be conscious?
Yeah. No, we I think have a very limited perception or definition of consciousness, and maybe AI will bring about change in the definition or a refinement of our understanding in a sense, because it's we're so in religion and science on this planet, we're the top. So everything that we've looked at and philosophized about, noted our perception, even though some of it might be enhanced by machines, human perception is the top. And all of a sudden, when AI keeps showing us how dumb we are, we'll have to kind of have a different way of looking at things. And that's a really interesting possibility of the banishment of the thinking machine. You know, it could very well come to that.
Right. Like that's what they're arguing. And I think drugs would be a major factor in making that happen because our mathematics is not going to get less complex. So if they had to get rid of these thinking machines and they had to go back to maybe early 1900s ways of computing things, could they do it? I don't know. I don't even know if there would be the willpower. At that point, they would just give up.
I think we could because up so easy as far as like how we things and you know even using it would take essentially at least a generation to go from digital to manual again at least, right? But I think we're capable of changing things up. But yeah, I don't think we realize how precarious the digital world as we have it now, if you will, is even without AI. But once you put AI into it, it might very well be that people go, nope, all computers must be destroyed. Turn them
Right.
in, or we're coming to your house for them. Like, wait, what?
Yeah.
They're all infected. They're all infected with AI. That's it.
Could be. Could be. Well, I think this was a good episode. We kind of went off in a bunch of different directions and we talked a lot about AI. And I know a lot of people have got to be getting sick of this topic.
But
There's
I think
just so
it's
much of it out there.
paradigm. It's so paradigm. Like every invention from the wagon wheel to the rubber tire has been a paradigm. But this reinvents invention itself. It can, and as they are putting forth that it will. So I think it is such a paradigm predicament.
Absolutely. Well, you can find me on Twitter or on YouTube and Instagram at the Headless Giant, and you can find Ethan on X at Ethan Indigo. He's the fourth initiate. He's got books on the on Amazon and the Occult Research Institute.
Definitely.
So check out there.
Appreciate everyone's input in the chat, and thanks, Ellis.
Thank you. And thank you guys for showing up. Share it with your friends. Get it out there. Thank you. And we'll see you again next time.